Hello and what is up YouTube? My name is G3Iron and welcome to today's discussion where we are going over the most recently announced, recently asked questions thread. So without further ado or any shenanigans, let's jump right into all this Q&A. In this thread, we'll round up any questions we answered elsewhere in the community so that you can find all the information in one easy place. The most recent information will always be at the top. We intend to update this post each weekday with any questions that have been answered that day. We will also fold our FAQ news posts into this post as they happen. When we add a new question and answer, we'll reply to the thread so that it gets picked up by various community trackers. In other words, what GGG is doing here, let me explain why this is important. All of the FAQs that they typically do here at the beginning of a league that sometimes trickle out as their own independent threads or as their own independent posts on the website, all of this is going to come right here on this one thread. So you could bookmark this thread, you can save it, you can simply refresh it each day and see what sort of announcements or questions are being interacted with by the team at Grinding Gear Games. And that's pretty cool. I like that communication pattern. Just make it one spot, bookmark it, save it, whatever, leave it up on your tabs, on your browsers, and then just constantly refresh it each day and see what all the info is coming out, trickling out from the community and responding to community questions. I really enjoy that. Okay, so here we go. When will the passive skill tree be updated? We have updated the passive skill tree data on GitHub to make it accessible to tool creators. The passive skill tree on the website gets updated alongside the expansion launch. So in other words, there's already info out there. So things like the POE community fork, probably they're already starting to work on that. And so we will see in the upcoming days throughout the week. In fact, I would assume probably over the next 48 to 72 hours, I would say definitely before Thursday, we'll have previews, at least mock-ups and different sorts of info threads and information images of what the new passive skill tree is going to look like. With the changes to jewels, will the unexpected prize divination card be updated? Yes, it now offers corrupted attribute transforming jewels. Next question, will you bring back the strike mastery that was removed? We discussed this further based on player feedback to see if we could consider other options, but unfortunately, we won't be bringing it back in 320. So the answer is no. Next up, the solutions and specifics section of the patch notes about the Lord of Drought Cluster Jewel Notable have conflicting information. Which version is correct? The specifics section is correct. We'll update the solution section to better reflect the specifics section. The solution section previously referenced what was written in the manifesto. However, it became outdated as we discovered an issue with what was planned in the manifesto and had to update it to what's written in the specific section. I just want to take a moment here to clarify. A lot of players play games. Not necessarily everybody's got experience working, producing a massive group project, which is called game design, right? So in a big ongoing games as a service model, you've got lots of different people who are responsible for lots of different things. This is why a company like Grinding Gear Games has more than 100 people working. Some of them are artists. Some of them are marketing people. Some of them are people who are just dealing with customer service. Some of them are going to be game designers. Some of them are going to be folks who are working specifically on addressing the community's concerns or communication, the frontward facing, the customer side facing of the business. And that might actually be different even than customer service or marketing. Anyway, lots of different people do lots of different things. And so when you've got a big group project like what Grinding Gear Games does every 3 months when they release a massive new patch and a bunch of new content for all of us to go out and play, it's very, very easy for any one of those groups to say, hey, here's our intention and this is what we're doing. And then another group to say, okay, that sounds like a great intention. And so they'll take the communication from group A to group B and say, yep, let's communicate that to the players. And then maybe group A says, hey, what about this? We've actually changed our mind. Or maybe group C says, hey, have you guys thought about this? We saw the public facing side of this. Have you guys thought about this potential repercussion? Or, as is in the case for frequently asked questions, maybe the community sees what is frontward facing and says, hey, we've got questions about this. Can you guys clarify? Like this particular instance where maybe there's conflicting or confusing language that's being used between multiple different posts. It's very, very easy in big group projects to have multiple different people having voices that are contributing to one thing, but they're actually saying something slightly different. And there is nothing that needs to be quite so precise as when you are finally communicating to your audience, to your consumer base, to your customers, exactly what it is that you are promising to deliver on. And so this is an issue for any company. It's an issue for every company that's got frontward-facing customers and that you need to put down any of the changes that you're doing, games as a service. This is a notorious thing. And the fact that this only happens every once in a while for grinding gear games is incredible. It's incredible. It speaks to the high level of quality assurance that they've got before they actually communicate things to the player base. So this is, yes, it's a mix-up. Yes, they need to clarify it. But the fact that it happens relatively rarely when you've got tens of thousands of words worth of communications on very, very specific things is incredible. Okay. Do Sanctum rewards only come from offers? No. The monsters also drop rewards, and many of them are unique monsters with corresponding levels of item rarity and quantity. Also, in the endgame, you can get new unique items and sanctified relics from the Sanctum. Next question. Do ruthless characters migrate to permanent parent leagues at the end of a challenge league? They do. Speaking of Ruthless, by the way, I'm going to make a video here this week and explain why I'm league starting Ruthless and not league starting Softcore. I'll make a video and discuss that later on, but this is exciting for me. They do. Hardcore characters that die will be deleted upon death, but hardcore characters that survive the league will migrate to the parent league. That means since I'm playing hardcore solo self-found, I'm going to have a whole bunch of characters that just end up deleted, and that's going to feel bad, but it's going to be funny to rewatch. All right, next question. When will Calandra League end? Wednesday, December 7th at 10 a.m. New Zealand time. So make sure you translate that into whatever time zone you are actually in. By the way, this is something that I do on my phone. I actually, on my home screen on my phone, I have 2 different time zones that are displayed. There's all sorts of widgets and apps that you can do this with. I have my time zone, obviously, so I know what time it is in my end of the world. But actually, whenever I'm playing Path of Exile, so for the previous 6 years, what I do is I actually set a second clock that tells me what time it is in New Zealand, so that way I don't even have to do time conversions. I just take a look and see. Anyway, maybe that's pathetic, maybe that's overboard, but that's something I do. All right, does Vol Smite's buff increase single target damage? Vol Smite has more damage than regular Smite, and its aura has a longer duration that has higher added lightning damage. It also generates lightning bolts that strike another target. There's been a lot of discussion about Vol Smite, specifically with its chains and its seemingly endless clear. It might be the exact specific thing, I don't know, to use when you're doing blights or legions to get all your legions to pop. It's going to be very interesting to see what people come up with using Vol Smite, but I'm looking forward to it. All right, can Vol Molten Strike's projectiles overlap? Yes, multiple projectiles can hit a single target. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, back in the day, those of you who are new to the Path of Exile game and the Path of Exile community, you may never have been around for the original Molten Strike meta, but there was a long time actually where Molten Strike was basically the meta for, let's say, delving and even for bossing, just because projectiles could overlap. And so there were several different ways to play Molten Strike and to make everything overlap and just do millions of damage back in the day, or tons of damage is the gaming pun. But yeah, this is an intended interaction for projectiles to overlap. So go crazy with it. How does Vol Volcanic Fissure work against single targets? Monsters are targeted by a maximum of 1 fissure. If you're fighting a single boss, it would be affected by 1 fissure, then it would travel to a semi-random locations. If you had 2 bosses, the first fissure would affect one, and the second fissure would affect the other. All right, so it'll be interesting to see on this if this particular skill is a smart skill, and what I mean by smart is it always targets what you want it to target, then great. If it is a dumb skill, and by dumb, I don't mean that it's bad or that it's poorly designed, I just mean it doesn't always hit what you want it to hit, then that could be potentially frustrating. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. Will Vol Caustic Arrow's ground effects stack with regular Caustic Arrow? An enemy can only be affected by 1 Caustic Arrow effect, but if multiple are applied, the strongest effect will be the one that applies to the enemy, i.e. the Vol Caustic Arrow effect takes priority since it's going to be stronger than the regular Caustic Arrow ground effect. So hopefully that answers that. You can't just stack up pools of damage. I believe that was in Wolcen. There was a skill that we used. I forget what it was called. Do you guys remember Wolcen? Anyway, shout out to everybody that played that on release. Oh boy, anybody that complains about Path of Exile on release did not play Wolcen. But anyway, there was a ground effect that essentially you could stack stuff up on. You can't do that with Caustic Arrow. It's just one effect, and that one effect, whichever one is stronger, is going to be the one that takes effect. Have the Delirium Everywhere event prizes been sent out? Yes. Congratulations to all the winners, and thanks to everyone who participated. So hopefully if you've been competing for that prize and you go in and you check your prize winnings, you can open them up. When will the new core supporter packs come out? After the Forbidden Sanctum launches, but before Christmas. We aren't sure of the exact date yet, but we will keep you updated. At this time, the existing core supporter packs will go away. So core supporter packs for this year will go away when the new ones come out. So that's GGG subtly, but not so subtly saying, hey, go buy them if you want them from this year, and the upcoming year is coming out soon. Will there be any changes to Ruthless for the 320 launch? Yes. You can see them over at Path of Exile /Ruthless. Can we have a way to accumulate Sanctum rooms and attempt them back to back? Yes. You can accumulate up to 8 rooms the size of a full Sanctum floor. So you can do an entire run before running some of them or all of them at once. So that's pretty cool. It's not going to be a league mechanic like what some feared, or maybe what was announced, or maybe what was miscommunicated, maybe what was misunderstood. I don't know where to put the blame on that. I'm not trying to put blame anywhere. But it is not going to be what some were fearing after watching the trailer. Oh, every single zone I have to use a room, otherwise I'm going to feel like I'm losing out. You don't have to. It'll essentially be every 8 zones you need to go in and run one. Otherwise you're going to sort of feel like you're missing out. How hard are the Sanctum mechanics for melee builds? Your resolve is impacted less by attacks that you're close to, so melee characters can have an easier time. There's been a lot of discussion about this. Oh, well, why would you ever play a melee character since you're just going to take resolve damage, and since none of your stats actually matter against taking resolve damage? Now, here's the caveat here. If it's true that proximity to a hit, to a resolve-based damage hit, is the key, right? There's not a layer of mitigation. There's no new stats. There's not resolve suppression or resolve defenses that we need to have as a new stat outside of actually interacting with the Forbidden Sanctum, right? There's not a brand new stat. There's a new timer that we have. There's a new health bar, and we will get items that will augment those stats, right? That's what we're going to get with this particular league, the league-specific account-bound items that you cannot trade. We're going to have those, but without being able to use your regular defenses like resistances and armor and evasion, since it's just going to be the range, your resolve is impacted less by attacks that you're close to. Doesn't say the skill you're using, doesn't say the class you picked. Okay, don't make up rules. It says by attacks that you're close to. So melee characters can have an easier time. So I want you to realize this. I just want you to think about this from a game design principle. If you're a player and you are playing a ranged-based skill and you are about to get hit by something that's going to cost you resolve, what this line tells me is move closer to the thing that's about to hit you. That's what this just told me. I could be wrong. Could be bald man could be wrong. Insert all the bald man. I tell Mrs. Draconis at least once a day, I've been wrong before and I'll be wrong again. Insert all the Kermit memes you want. Your resolve, this is what GGG has said, your resolve is impacted less by attacks that you're close to. Doesn't say it's based on your active skill gem. So there's no way for the game to tell whether you're a melee character or whether you're a ranged character. So if you're a raider and you're a pathfinder and you're playing Tornado Shot, or you're an occultist and you're playing Bane, you're a Templar and you're playing Spark, you're a pathfinder and you're playing Caustic Arrow, you're a trickster and you're playing Toxic Rain, you're a witch and you're using SRS, whatever it is, you're a champion and you're using Frostblades, or I don't know, whatever. Your resolve is impacted less by attacks that you're close to. It has no impact on your build. If you're going to get hit and you want to take less damage, get closer to it, right? Right? So essentially, some attacks will have range. Some things inside the Sanctum will have range, and the closer you are maybe to the origin point of the damage that's being dealt, the resolve damage that's being dealt, maybe the less damage you take. That's just something to think about as we are playing in the Hades League, right? As we are playing in the Roguelite League, that's something to think about. Get closer to the thing that's going to hit you, if it's going to hit you. Now, if you can just dodge it, obviously dodge it, right? then you don't worry about it. But even if you're playing a range-based character, just get closer to it and you'll take less damage. It has nothing to do with the tankiness of it. So it's interesting that the game design choice is, hey, how can we make this better for melee? Well, it actually still benefits range. Just get closer to the source. Yeah, I could be misunderstanding that, but that's how that reads. All right, what happens if I crash while in the Forbidden Sanctum? When you play your next map, you'll be able to replay the same room you were up to. Aurelius coins and rewards are only locked in upon successful completion of a room. So that's pretty cool. So that means that people are going to be logging out a lot. Do sanctified relics affect my character outside of the sanctum? Yes, the benefits of sanctified relics affect you everywhere. Oh, interesting. Very cool. How rare are sanctified relics? Well, I only see one throughout my playthrough of the League. As you start to master the Sanctum at high levels, you'll accumulate more sanctified relics to pick between when you are trying to find the perfect one for your build. Interesting. So, do you see how this says at high levels? So this means expect to see some people, like within the first few days, have a bunch of them. And then also expect some players who are more casual or who are playing hardcore or who are not using the trade economy or who are just bad at the game. I'm waving because these are all things that are me. If you're not at high levels, you should not expect to see one, right? It is going to be a reward-based thing based off of how far and how high you're able to progress in your Sanctum. Is the Relic altar shared between your characters or per character? Your Relic altar is per character, but your Relic locker is shared between your characters in the same league. In other words, if you find something on a Pathfinder, you can trade it over there and use it on a Guardian. If you've got a Relic on your Guardian, yes, you can transfer it over to your Juggernaut. You can do that. All right, it's going to be stored on your character as a character, but you can put it in the locker and then transfer it just like you transfer any other item between your stash. Is your Sanctum run shared between characters, i.e. can you run different rooms of your run with different characters? Each of your characters has its own Sanctum runs and progress within them. So no, you cannot log out. You cannot do a run on a Inquisitor Spark and then go, oh no, I actually need to use my tanky jug in order to clear this. You can't do that. It's going to be character-linked Forbidden Sanctums. Why haven't you nerfed Seismic Trap? There's been a bunch of people talking about Seismic Trap. Here we go. We have nerfed Seismic Trap several times this year. We understand that competitive players would like Seismic Trap to be nerfed yet again, so they don't feel obligated to play with it for ladder pushing. Outside of this context, it doesn't appear to be used by any extremely large number of people. It's top 20, but not meta-defining. We will investigate whether we can change it for situations that are relevant to racing, but we can't promise anything yet. This is a very interesting discussion. It's probably going to come up when I release my Get Off My Lawn rant discussion later on this week. When I yell at everybody and say, well, not yell at everybody. When I yell at everybody complaining about patch notes and nerfs. Like, grinding gear games just can't win. On the one hand, you've got folks who are going, why did you nerf everything? And oh my, why is it that Seismic Trap is just like the meta skill and everybody's going to play it? By the way, like the highest that Seismic Trap has been over the last year. I've just been looking at the numbers. We just did a video on it. You can go and watch it for yourself. Like the highest percentage of players that have been playing Seismic Trap within the opening, it was only during the opening weekend, and it was 22% of the league was playing Saboteur. I don't think even all of them were playing Seismic Trap, but even out of that, it was just in the first 3 days. So we're talking a very small percentage of players who are playing to compete at the top end of Path of Exile, and that percentage from day one went down from 22% to day 2 to 20% to day 3 went down to 18%, and it just kept dropping from there. So it's amazing to me how players, no matter where they're from, can complain about patch notes. Oh, why is it that things are getting nerfed, right? When things get nerfed, everybody's complaining, why did this get nerfed? And then when things don't get nerfed, hey, why didn't you nerf Seismic Trap? Everybody's using it. No, not everybody's using it. Give me a break. When you re-roll an Awakened Gem from one type to another with the new beast crafting recipe, will it keep its experience level? Oh, that's a very good question. When you roll an Awakened Gem to another type, it will keep its level and experience, but different gems have different experience values per level, so they may not be exactly the same. But essentially, if you start with an Awakened Gem at level 2 with 50% experience and roll it to another one, it will be roughly level 2 with 50% experience. Okay, so the unique aspect of this, the thing to watch for is if you just leveled the gem, or if you're just about to level a gem. That's something to watch out for. Two new masteries have taken their place. The first provides you take 40% reduced damage from critical strikes by cursed enemies, while the second provides recover 1% of life when you curse a non-cursed enemy and recover 1% of mana when you curse a non-cursed enemy. Do these recovery stats work with blasphemy curses as well? Recovery stats don't work with blasphemy, so it's got to be self-cast. You can't just walk into their aura and walk out. Like, you can't do that. You can't walk in and walk out, walk in and walk out, walk in and walk out. That would be pretty interesting, though. If it did work with blasphemy, that would have been a pretty fun workaround, but no. The tribal, oh, by the way, we should probably actually test that. Somebody should actually test this just to make sure, because you might accidentally have found a way to get a whole bunch of regen. But anyway. The Tribal Fury notable passive skill no longer has strike skills target one additional nearby enemy. It now has melee strike skills, deal splash damage to surrounding targets. Does that apply to the melee of dominating blow minions? No. Simple answer. No, it does not apply. With Survival Secrets Jewel now being removed, will its effects, flask applied to you, have 20% reduced effect, and or flasks gain 3 charges every 3 seconds while they're inactive be available anywhere else in the game? No, but we'll look into ways to bring this back in the future in some form. Couldn't you just bring this back on the Pantheon? Wouldn't the Pantheon be a spot to put this? Just throwing that out there. Hey, me or anybody in the community, remind me in 6 months or in 12 months. Come back and check this video and post a comment. Did they put this on the Pantheon? I would think it would go on the Pantheon. Anyway. Do you have any plans to restore the effects of Replica Conqueror's efficiency, Replica Hot-Headed, and Lord of Steel? No. We don't see these effects as necessary to retain. Wow. However, we do understand that some players are very interested in them, so we will consider them when developing future content, though. Interesting. Can we have color-coded monster mods back? We are looking into it and are keen for your suggestions, feedback on the readability of monster mods. Okay, well, if you want a really old pair of eyes who can't see things very well, I'm more than happy to read things and say I can't see that or I can see that. All right, can you confirm how many modifiers rare monsters will have? We are balancing around having between 2 and 4 mods per rare monster. So that's a heck of a lot better than what Arch Nemesis was, right? Everybody complaining, oh, patch notes are terrible and this game is bad and oh, look at all the bad things they've done. That sounds normal. That sounds normal. That sounds like a year ago from prior to me taking my hiatus. 2 to 4 mods. Does not sound bad. In fact, it might actually sound less. Why won't challenges be enabled in Ruthless? Because 3.20 is a beta of Ruthless, and we're still building the fundamentals of the mode. We needed to have deployed challenges well in advance, which was difficult to do with the fundamentals of the mode still being worked on. We currently intend to have challenges being available from 3.21 onwards. That's okay. I'm still going to play it in 3.20. I'm not worried about it. My challenge totems are so pathetic anyway, I don't even care. That's totally fine. I play the game for my own enjoyment, not for the challenge totems. Don't really get a kick out of doing all that stuff. Are we allowed to know if Atziri's disfavor was moved back to Uber Atziri? Yes, it has been moved back to Uber Atziri. Pledge of Hands has moved from Uber Atziri to regular Atziri. Okay, so they're swapping places. Swapping places, probably because they made Atziri's disfavor. They gave it a buff. That's why. Whole bunch of extra flat damage. Does the gain additional elemental damage reduction equal to half your chaos resistance mod on Eternal Damnation reduce the damage you take from elemental damage over time effects? Yes. Okay. Wow. That's really good. It's already really good. But that's really good. Yep. Yep. Somebody's going to come up with like a near invulnerable build or something close to it. Yep. Somebody's going to figure it out. All right. Does using a fracturing orb also reroll the mods on an item? No. That's really good. That'd be kind of nasty. That sounds like something that they would have done back in Scourge. Like, oh, it does this really cool effect, but now it also does something bad. It locks in the rolls after re-rolling them. Ooh, yeah, no. So, wait. So I could see it in the future. Okay, let me just say, I could see a Volve Fractured Orb in the future. Let me just say, I could see that. All right. If the way socketing linking items is changing for POE 2, what will happen to the ethereal fusing effect? It's too early to make promises for how Path of Exile 2 works. Whoa! Whoa! But our goal is to make sure that microtransactions are updated to be as compatible as possible. Whoa! Okay, so a couple of things here. First off, that's a great disclaimer to say it's too early to make promises for how Path of Exile works. I mean, you guys 2 years ago or 3 years ago, you showed us you were making Path of Exile 2, and we all got excited about it. I think I made a video at one point arguing that I think it was too early to actually announce it, but I think the discussion was trying to compete with D4 at the time. But yeah, anyway, that's fascinating. The microtransaction, the way how it looks right now, at least in the trailer, it looks like it shows you how you are using your fusings to try and resocket, or I'm sorry, refuse, relink an item. It shows it over your character in town. So in theory, in POE 2, with what we've been shown, it's the gems that will have links on them. Not the items, right? It's the gems that'll actually have the sockets or something. Like the items will have sockets, but it's the gems that link. So we don't have to use fusings, right? That's what everybody was freaking out about when POE 2 was announced, is you don't have to use fusings anymore. So that'll be interesting. That's actually a really good question, especially as related to the microtransaction. I would imagine a lot of people there would be a genuine outcry amongst especially big-time spenders in Wales if microtransactions from POE 1 don't translate over to POE 2. I could see it happening. There have been plenty of free-to-play games and games as a service that have done that. They've just had to deal with the backlash of it. Will there be a boss kill event at launch? Not for this league. When will we see 2020 gems? We are aiming for as early as Tuesday, New Zealand time, but maybe as late as Thursday. We'll keep you updated as things become finalized. Okay, there we go. So that's the FAQ update in the recently asked questions forum thread. I, again, encourage you to simply go in and bookmark this particular page so that way you can update it every single day. They're going to put new stuff towards the top. So if you're wondering, hey, what sort of new questions is the Grinding Gear Games development team and community team interacting with and responding to, it'll be there at the top so you won't have to scroll all the way down. So that'll be pretty nice. Anyway, I've given you some of my reactions to some of these answers. I'd love to see what your reactions are down below in the comments. Thanks so much for joining us for today's discussion. There's a whole bunch more discussions that are going to be coming out this week as we count down the upcoming 320 Forbidden Sanctum League. And as always, I hope the upcoming Forbidden Sanctum League is the league. A Mirror of Calandra drops for you. Thanks for watching that video. If you'd like more information on any of our discussion points today, you can see them down below in the video description. If you'd also like to join our Discord or support our Patreon, you can do so with the links down below. Thanks again, and big shout out to all of our Patreon supporters.